I have with us Madge Manfred, a retired professor of English from Three Rivers Community College. She has been active with Joshua's Trust for over 20 years, served as president from 2005 to 2007, and chaired the accreditation committee. With Madge's help, Joshua's Trust received national accreditation in February of 2011. Joshua's Trust is one of only 4 in Connecticut to be accredited. And also have here in the studio Allison Burchell Robinson. Graduated from Connecticut College in '64, worked in theater management for 20 years plus before joining Covenant House as vice president in charge of purchasing nationwide. She retired in 2002 and moved to Ashford. Her favorite pastime is spending time with her horses and continuing the restoration of her 1715 house. That's very interesting. And on the phone line, we also have Elizabeth Moore, who is the Director of Conservation at the Connecticut Farmland Trust, the private statewide conservation organization dedicated solely to permanently protecting Connecticut's working farmland. Since joining the trust in 2004, Elizabeth has preserved 23 landowners of family farms totaling 1,500 plus acres. She has more than 20 years of experience working with landowners, towns, and community groups to preserve farmland and significant natural and community resources. Prior to joining the trust, Elizabeth was a project manager with the Trust of New York as part of City of New York's landmark $50 million watershed protection program. Elizabeth is a graduate of Bowdoin College and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. All right. Hope I didn't mash that up too much. Elizabeth, hello.
Hi.
And Madge?
Hi.
Hello. And Allison?
Hello there.
Hello. I'm glad we came here today to talk about land conservation. It's a topic very true to your hearts, I'm sure. I want to just give a brief introduction on what Joshua Trust is for anybody who is unfamiliar with land conservation and the work of Joshua's Trust. Joshua's Tract Conservation and Historic Trust was formed in 1966 as a common venture by the Mansfield Conservation Commission and the Mansfield Historical Society. The trust takes its name from Joshua, son of Uncas, the famous Mohegan sachem. Joshua, who died in the Narragansett War in 1677, bequeathed a tract of land in eastern Connecticut to 16 settlers from Norwich. The boundaries of Joshua's tract are roughly the boundaries of the area of the trust's work in today. Joshua's Trust area corresponds in general with the 10-town Wyndham Regional Planning Agency area. Elizabeth, do you have a brief intro on what the Connecticut Farmland Trust does?
Sure. We're the statewide land trust that works solely with private landowners to conserve their land. We work primarily on family farms since we really don't have commercial agriculture, like industrial agriculture in Connecticut, so we work almost exclusively with family farms, and we've protected a little over 2,000 acres, 26 farms, and we do also a lot of educational outreach. So if anybody out there is looking to have a speaker come in and talk to their land trust or their town conservation commission or something like that, we do a lot of that also.
Do you ever go to schools and talk to kids about the land conservation?
No, I've never done that, but I would love the opportunity to do that because I think it's very important that we educate the next generation.
I'll hook you up with somebody.
Excellent.
All right. Now, is there anything you want to say before we get into some of these questions?
Just that, Elizabeth's organization covers the whole state. We cover 14 towns. As you mentioned, it's 10 towns in the Wyndham Planning Region, plus we cover Tolland and a few others that are on the periphery of that. And there are different conservation organizations that operate, sometimes overlapping. And so it's hard for the general public sometimes to sort out who they are and what they do. So with the Connecticut Farmland Trust, it's very clear they protect family farms. They keep farmland in agricultural use. We're primarily in the business of protecting open space, that is, keeping the rural character of this area.
So, can you give us an example of how you would protect a tract of land? Would somebody donate it to Joshua's Trust?
Primarily, the land is donated. One of the recent acquisitions that we had is something we can talk about a little bit later. The Ada Wolf property in Wyndham, which is over 100 acres and has a 22-acre pond on it. So most of the land is a gift, but we also work with town commissions to get grants to purchase either land or what's called an easement, a conservation easement or restriction. And there, the land stays with a private owner. And currently, we're working with the town of Columbia, which is preparing to submit a grant to buy the development rights or get a conservation easement on a farm that's in Columbia. So we work both as an adjunct in purchases, but we don't have a lot of money ourselves to go out and purchase land.
You rely a lot on donations
Yes.
of resources and also land.
Exactly. We're not funded by the state or the federal government or local municipalities. We operate strictly with membership dues, so we're always trying to get people to understand what we do and why it's important to be a member. In that even though we're called a trust, we're not a bank. Some people sometimes confuse us with a bank. We don't have deep pockets. We have very shallow pockets, and we use mostly volunteers for our work.
Excellent. Has urban sprawl had an impact on the availability of land or the loss of land that can be preserved for open space?
Well, I think that any time you have the problems of the developments arising, you're always going to have an impact on open space, because there's always going to be the hard decision that a landowner has to make as to whether or not they need to sell their land in order to put money in their pocket, or if they really have the luxury of preserving the open space. Joshua's Trust tries to work very hard with them in both cases.
Do you get a sense that most landowners want to be able to preserve their land, but sometimes are forced for financial reasons to have to sell it?
I think the question you were asking is, do we get the impression that people really want to preserve their land?
Right.
And I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. If there is a way in which they could figure out how to do it, they really prefer to go that route.
So do you do any education for landowners?
Yes, we do. In fact, we've worked with town open space and conservation commissions to have informational sessions for landowners. And we have a brochure called Protecting Family Land. So if there are listeners who are interested in finding out more about that, we have material that we can give them.
I noticed, I think it was on maybe the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
Mm-hmm.
They had some extension programs or education programs
Mm-hmm.
on what landowners can do. What are some of the things that can be done to educate landowners? Are they encouraged to survey their land and keep track of the types of trees and topography that's on their land?
Something that landowners can do is, I think, one, reach out to a town conservation commission, because I think they're a great source of information, and also a local land trust. In Connecticut, we're fortunate to have, I think it's 122 land trusts, and almost every town has a land trust, or they're covered by a regional land trust like Joshua's Trust. And many of the websites, I mean, for our website, for example, I know also the Connecticut Land Conservation Council has a lot of resources on their website. So there's a lot of stuff that's now available, especially because of the Internet, to help people know about different land conservation techniques for their property. My thing that I always say to people is that we all know how to develop our land. If we want to develop it, you know somebody who may have developed their land, or you may know a realtor, you may know a developer, you may know a builder, but most people don't know how to conserve their land. And I see what is the job of land trusts like Joshua's Trust, like Connecticut Farmland Trust, and other local land trusts and conservation commissions, is to get that information out there. So when people have family land that they want to do something with, they don't know what to do with it, that they may be faced with, that they need money, they may need resources for a variety of different things, that there would be the opportunity that they would know not only about how to develop their property, but they'd also know about the conservation options.
Elizabeth, do you notice that when consider no longer farming their land, the next generation doesn't want to pick up where they left off? Or do you find that a lot of them are selling their land to these developers to build these little ticky-tacky houses and communities?
Well, I think there are a whole bunch of different reasons that farmers, or frankly any landowner, would be selling land. It could be to send a kid to college, to maybe they need to, in the case of a farm, to sell some of their land, a portion of their land, so they can further expand their farm business. And maybe I'm seeing increasingly, quite frighteningly, the number of landowners who are having to sell for health care, especially older folks who don't have insurance, especially with nursing home costs, who are having to sell. What we're also seeing is that we have incredibly high land values in Connecticut, some of the highest in the country. And as a result, if a family has held land for a very long period of time, they may actually be shocked when it comes to estate planning time or after the death of the landowner, finding out how much the property is worth, and then having to sell all or a portion of the property to pay the estate taxes. I also work with a number of landowners, I should start keeping track, who do not have heirs, who do not have a next generation, not even that they don't have a next generation who's not interested in the farm, don't have heirs at all, so that there's a very strong interest in seeing it conserved. But I've never worked with a landowner, worked with a farmer who has been excited about developing their land. I think that given the option, I'd say vast majority of landowners who have large tracts, especially family farms, who have a very, very strong commitment to seeing them conserved. And what we hope is that there will continue to be money available through the state, through federal programs, and also if we can get the economy back, to have money coming through town referendums, bond referendums, and also making it possible for private land trusts like Joshua's Trust, Connecticut Farmland Trust, to privately fundraise to help purchase conservation easements and land.
Mm-hmm. Madge, what is the overall benefit of preserving land in your eyes?
Well, it just has so many benefits, but let me start with the economic benefits, since we've just been talking a little bit about funding and prices and stuff like that. Some people feel like if you preserve open space, you're taking it off the tax rolls, and therefore it costs money to preserve open space. In fact, the studies that have been done show that the opposite is true. So if you compare what happens with the revenue from open space, revenue in the sense that land value increases around protected open space, and land values in towns that have protected open space generally are higher than they are in towns that haven't. So there's a real economic benefit to preserving land. So in addition to the economic benefit of preserving land, there's the benefit to health, to long-term health. Watersheds are very important. So to the extent that we can keep areas where watersheds accumulate from having properties built on them, then that's an important thing. It's also probably, important for something like, spiritual health or mental health or something like that, to be able to get away from the crowds and to have vistas where you can have a sense of being there with nature and not surrounded by man-made things.
I'd like to speak to that as well, but I just recently attended the Connecticut Land Conference, and the keynote speaker, Andy Kendall, I believe, made a very key point when he was speaking about how the demographics will be changing in the next 50 years. It was rather startling to hear that the projections are that more than 90% of the people will be living in urban cities.
Wow.
And the programs that they are developing now, and I'd like to see Joshua's Trust start going in that direction as well, is opening up programs that introduce children and adults and people from the cities to the land, to the open space, to the habitats, to what can be grown on the land, what comes from the land.